I thought my mother-in-law's birthday would be just another dinner, until mocking smiles turned on me. So I handed his father an envelope revealing years of hidden debts and betrayal, and as silence gripped the table, I knew the reckoning was only beginning. At my mother-in-law's birthday dinner, my place was set with a paper plate and a plastic fork next to the dog bowl. "It's just for fun," my sister-in-law laughed. I nodded and replied, "Then let's keep the fun going." I handed something to my husband's father and watched every face drop. "Wait, is this for real?" I asked, blinking at the sad little setup, a pink paper plate, a bright yellow plastic fork, and right beside it, a ceramic dog bowl, still wet from the golden retriever's tongue. Julie, my sister-in-law, burst into laughter. "Oh, wow, you should see your face," she said, clutching her stomach. "It's just a joke. Come on, lighten up." I didn't move. The rest of the table, Rick, his two brothers, their wives, and both of his parents, sat around the long oak table with matching silverware, fine china, and linen napkins folded like swans. "Yeah, lighten up, hon," one of the brothers muttered. My husband Rick looked at me with a crooked, sheepish smile, the same one he used every time his family did something awful. "It's just Julie being Julie," he mumbled under his breath. "Seriously?" I asked, looking around. "No one sees a problem with this?" Rick's mom spoke up then, raising her wine glass. "Sweetheart, we're just having a bit of fun. You're too serious all the time. You know how we do things. You sat me next to the dog," I said slowly, on a folding chair. Julie giggled again. "Oh, come on, don't be such a drama queen." Rick's father chuckled. "It's harmless. We all get teased around here, don't we?" "Do you?" I snapped. "Because I don't see anyone else eating off Dollar Tree tableware." Silence fell over the table. Even the dog stopped slurping for a second. I smiled then, slowly. "You know what? Let's keep the fun going." Without breaking eye contact, I reached into my bag, pulled out an envelope, walked right over to Rick's father, and handed it to him. He looked confused. "What's this?" "Open it," I said. He slid his thick fingers under the flap, pulled out the paper inside, and began to read. The smile disappeared from his face. His wife leaned over to peek. Julie stopped laughing. "What is this?" Rick asked, standing up now, his voice tight. "That," I said calmly, "is me saying the joke's over." Rick's mom narrowed her eyes. "Is this some kind of prank?" "Nope, it's real," I said. "Just like this dinner." I walked back to my seat, the one by the dog bowl, and picked up the paper plate. I held it up and looked at Julie. "Cute," I said, "but you're going to want to remember this moment because next time you want to play games, make sure you're ready for the ending." Then I dropped the paper plate. It didn't shatter or crash, just hit the floor with the same weightless silence they always gave me. No one followed. No one said a word, except the dog. He barked once, as if agreeing with me. I didn't even drive home right after the dinner. I sat in the parking lot of a gas station, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles went white. I could still hear Julie laughing in my ears, see Rick's dad go pale when he read the first line of that letter. And the worst part? Rick didn't say a single word, not one. Not when I was humiliated, not when his sister mocked me, not even when I walked out. He just watched. And this wasn't the first time. "Babe, you know my family's just like that," he said once after his mother called me a low-class gold digger with no table manners during Easter brunch. I'd spent hours preparing a quiche, trying to impress them. I smiled through it. Rick shrugged. "Ignore it. That's how she jokes." No, it wasn't. But I wanted to believe him back then. I wanted to believe this was normal, that maybe I was too sensitive. But the truth is, the humiliation didn't start with the paper plate. It started the moment I married into their family. "You're so lucky Rick chose you," his mother had said with a cold smile at our engagement dinner. We were worried he'd end up with someone who couldn't keep up. I didn't understand then. I thought she meant socially, maybe financially. We weren't rich, but I held my own. I had a stable job, paid my debts, lived small but secure. Rick, meanwhile, had, let's say, flexible employment. In other words, he quit things when they got hard, but his family never blamed him for that. No, Rick was their golden boy. So when his car broke down, I paid for repairs. When his credit tanked after he forgot to pay 3 credit cards, I helped consolidate his debt. When he wanted to take some time off to find his passion, I covered rent, groceries, and utilities. At first, it felt like what a supportive partner should do. But then things escalated. "Can you send Mom that $200 for the cake deposit?" Rick asked casually one morning, scrolling on his phone. "What cake?" "For Julie's birthday. It's custom made or something." I blinked. "Wait, we're paying for that?" He looked confused. Yeah. She said it made sense since we don't have kids and we make more right now. I opened my mouth and closed it. I didn't want to fight. Not again. That was my first mistake. From then on, it was one small favor after another. Paying for group gifts, covering last-minute Airbnb bookings during family vacations, paying the deposit for Rick's brother's wedding venue because it was just a loan, they said. No one ever paid me back. When I finally tried to say no, Rick's mom called me a controlling little thing. You don't want to support your husband's family? She asked, tilting her wine glass. What kind of wife are you? And Rick, God, Rick just stood there. She didn't mean it, he told me on the drive home. She's just old school. She said I was just taking advantage of the family. She jokes like that. You know how she is. Then why doesn't she ever joke like that with Julie? Rick didn't answer. And I knew the answer already. Julie could do no wrong. Julie's divorce? A brave woman leaving a toxic man. Julie's job loss? The company didn't deserve her. Julie buying a Tesla while still living rent-free at their beach house? Well, she deserved to treat herself. But me? I was always the outsider, the freeloader, the mooch, the mistake. It wasn't just emotional either. It became financial quickly. One month, I checked our shared bank account and saw $1,800 missing. Rick? I asked, knocking on his office door. He didn't even look guilty. Julie needed help covering the property tax bill. She's stressed. You gave her our money? He shrugged. It's my sister, and you didn't think to ask me? I knew you'd say no, he said. That's the thing about you. You never want to help. That night, I slept on the couch. The next day, Julie sent me a voice note. Hey, she said in that sticky sweet voice of hers, I'm sorry if you were surprised about the money. Rick said he'd talk to you, but we all chip in. You know, that's what family does. All chip in? No, I chipped in. Julie didn't pay rent. Julie didn't work more than part-time, but she threw lavish birthday parties, bought designer bags, and hired a personal chef for her dog, and now they set my place next to the dog bowl. The symbolism wasn't even subtle anymore. The thing is, I let it happen. I smiled through it, told myself it wasn't worth the drama, that they'd come around. But then Rick's mother called me last month. Sweetheart, Julie's birthday is coming up. I assume you're taking care of the dinner reservation. I froze. Excuse me? She chuckled. It's only fair. You and Rick don't have kids. Julie's got enough on her plate. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We've been covering everyone's plate, I said slowly. And I don't mean the dinner ones. She didn't laugh. Don't be dramatic. That was my breaking point. I started documenting everything, every Venmo, every charge, every email where they asked for a little help. And I wrote the letter, the one I handed to Rick's father at that dinner. No one knew what was coming. They thought they'd mock me like usual. They didn't know I'd had enough. When I got home that night after dropping the plate and walking out, I found Rick already waiting, pacing in the living room. What was that? He snapped. That, I said, dropping my keys, was me finally saying no to your family. You embarrassed everyone. No, I interrupted. You embarrassed me for years. You watched them tear me apart. You let them humiliate me at every holiday, and now you're mad that I didn't just sit and take it again. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. That letter I gave your dad, I said, voice low. It outlines every single transaction I've made to this family in the last 4 years, with bank statements, with receipts. Rick's face went pale. I also CC'd our lawyer, because guess what? I'm done. And you get to choose which side you're on now. Rick didn't come home that night. He texted me around 2 a.m. I need space. You embarrassed my family. I'm staying at Julie's. The irony hit me so hard I almost laughed. He was staying with the woman who sat me next to a dog bowl, the woman whose birthday I had unknowingly paid for 3 years in a row. I guess that paper plate really broke something, and it wasn't plastic. But the real explosion? Oh, it hadn't even started yet. 2 days later, I got the call. We want to talk, Rick's mom said, as a family. I almost declined, but then I remembered I still had one last move to play. Their house smelled like cinnamon candles in fake perfection. Julie opened the door with a smirk, wearing a silk robe like this was a spa weekend. Rick stood behind her, arms crossed, silent. His dad was already sitting in the living room, holding my letter in one hand like it was a ticking bomb. His mom hovered beside him, clearly rehearsed. Julie sipped a mimosa. Nice of you to join us, she said. Now that you've had your little tantrum. I didn't sit down. Instead, I dropped a small USB drive on the coffee table. What's that? Rick's mom asked sharply. Something fun, I said. Since your family loves fun, right? Rick looked nervous. What is it? I smiled. It's a copy of every bank transaction, Venmo request, credit card charge, and text message from your family asking me for money, categorized by who asked how much and how often. Julie choked on her mimosa. You're bluffing, she snapped. Rick's dad inserted the USB into his laptop. Silence. Then, $350 for Julie's Tesla down payment, $1,200 for the emergency vet surgery for a dog that never existed, $400 monthly for Rick's business startup that never actually launched. And then came the twist. Rick's father clicked on a folder named Transfers to Outside Accounts. What is this? He asked. I didn't flinch. That's the fun part, because right there, clear as day, were transfers Julie had made using Rick's login to her boyfriend. Julie went pale. Rick blinked. Wait, what? Julie transferred money from your brother's account to a guy named Marco, I said coldly. Marco, who lives in Miami, who calls you baby in the payment notes. Rick looked like he'd been slapped. You stole from me? He whispered. Julie's voice cracked. You always said I could use your savings for emergencies. Rick turned to me. You knew. I figured it out a few weeks ago, I said. That's when I started digging. Thought you might want to know how your perfect sister spends your money. Rick stared at his sister like he didn't recognize her. His mom finally screamed, Enough! This is a private matter. No, I said, stepping closer. This is a pattern. First, you use me, then you call me cheap. Then you humiliate me in front of the entire family and sit me beside a dog bowl, all while funneling money behind my back. Julie's eyes filled with tears. Don't act like a victim. You're just mad we don't worship you. No, I said, calm and clear. I'm mad that I built your house of lies and you still called me a loser. Then I turned to Rick. This is your last chance, I said. Choose your family or choose this. He opened his mouth, then closed it, and then he sat down. Didn't say a word, not even sorry. I stared at him, that silent little coward, and felt something in me go still. Right, I nodded. Then I guess I know. I reached into my bag and pulled out a second envelope, placed it on the table. What's this? His dad asked. Divorce papers, I said. Julie gasped. His mother shrieked. Rick muttered something I couldn't hear. Only Rick stayed silent. I spoke to a lawyer the day after your dinner, I added. Turns out, when your name is on the joint account but mine is on the mortgage, you don't get the house. Julie's jaw dropped. Wait, you're taking the house? Rick's mom stood up. That's outrageous. That house was bought with Rick's family money. Was it? I said coolly. Because I've got receipts that say otherwise. And then the final twist. Oh, and by the way, I added, turning to Rick, you might want to check your company laptop. I forwarded your business expenses to your boss. You know, the ones labeled client lunches that were really spa dates with Julie's friends. Julie turned on him. You used company money for that? Are you insane? Rick finally stood up. You've ruined everything. No, I said, picking up my purse. I've just stopped pretending everything's fine. Then I turned toward the door, looked over my shoulder, and added, and one more thing. They all stared. Next time you set a place for me, make it outside. I prefer fresh air to nonsense. And with that, I walked out. No one followed me. Not this time. Rick didn't come home that night. No surprise. But what did surprise me, the silence. No calls, no texts, no I'm sorry, nothing. Not even after I handed his father that letter, not after I exposed Julie for funneling thousands of dollars from Rick's account to her Miami boyfriend. Not after I dropped the word divorce like a lit match in a room full of gas. Instead, I got a text from Rick at 2:08 a.m. I need space. I'm staying at Julie's. You made this ugly. Ugly? No. Ugly was them. What I did was clean. I moved out the next morning, took only what I paid for, my books, my laptop, my grandma's jewelry, and the coffee machine. Left everything else behind, including the man who had watched me burn for 4 years and never once lifted a glass of water. I found a tiny apartment downtown, nothing fancy, peeling wallpaper, mismatched tiles, a heater that sounded like it had asthma, but it was quiet, peaceful, mine. The first few days felt like I'd escaped a cult. I ate what I wanted, slept when I wanted. I didn't wake up to cold shoulders or guilt-tripping texts. I finally had oxygen. Then Julie showed up. She stood outside my door in oversized sunglasses and a hoodie that practically screamed, "Disgraced celebrity on the run." In her hand, a manila folder. Her voice was hollow when I opened the door. He sold me out, she said. I raised a brow. Excuse me? Rick, she said, her voice trembling now. He gave Marco, my ex, everything. The bank statements, the texts, the proof. He traded me for a cut in some startup deal. He said I was a burden. I stared at her, stunned. Wait, Marco is your husband? I thought he was your boyfriend. She took off the sunglasses. Her eye was bruised. I told everyone we split. I lied. And now he knows I've been sending him money from Rick's account. Her lips trembled. He threatened me. I blinked. Julie, the family's golden girl had just crumbled on my doorstep. Why come to me? I asked. You hated me. You all did. She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. Because you were the only one who ever told the truth. And that was when the plan began to form. I didn't trust Julie. Not completely, but I didn't need to. All I needed was her access. We made a deal. She'd give me what I needed. Insider details on Rick's business. Screenshots of emails, accounting files, the whole corrupt web. In return, I'd protect her legally, publicly. I'd bury Rick without dragging her down with him. Over the next 3 weeks, we burned everything down. Julie gave me access to the financials of Rick's new startup, a flashy-looking fintech scam he was about to pitch to investors. I handed it all, fake invoices, ghost employees, stolen tax IDs, to a journalist at a major outlet. I filed a tip to the IRS, anonymously, of course. And then we waited. The fallout came fast. 1 week later, Rick's name was plastered across the news. Local startup implodes amid federal investigation. CFO accused of fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. There he was on live TV being escorted out in handcuffs. His parents were nowhere to be seen. Julie had gone off-grid. And me? I was drinking coffee in a sunlit cafe reading the article while the waitress refilled my mug. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. I hadn't just escaped a toxic marriage. I'd exposed the whole system. A few days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Julie, he's gone for good. I'm safe. Thank you. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Some part of me hoped she'd learned something from this, but I wasn't here to save her. I wasn't here to save anyone. For the first time in my life, I was saving me. The funny thing? Rick still never reached out. No apology, no excuses, not even an insult. But a month after the arrest, I got a call from Rick's lawyer. He wants to negotiate, he said. I think we can settle this amicably. Oh, we already did, I replied. The moment he chose Julie over me, the moment he watched me get humiliated and said nothing, that was our settlement, Mr. Carter. I hung up. I was done. Done playing the good wife. Done being the family bank. Done sitting at the table next to the ridiculous dog bowl. They called me cheap, a burden, a joke. Now they were silent, broke, exposed, and I was free. Final update, thank you for the dog bowl. 6 months later, I barely recognized my own life. And I mean that in the best possible way. I lived in a sunlit apartment with wood floors, real plants I managed not to kill, and a bookshelf I finally had time to read. My mornings were slow, filled with black coffee and silence, not awkward silences like before, peaceful ones. I got promoted, I made new friends, I even joined a pottery class for no reason at all. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to someone else's crisis. I wasn't bending to guilt. I wasn't tiptoeing around anyone's fragile ego. I was simply living. And no one from Rick's side had dared contact me. Not Rick, not his mother, not even Julie, until yesterday. I was checking my mail when I saw it, a pale blue envelope with no return address. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. Inside was a folded piece of notebook paper, and on it, in careful, shaky handwriting, you probably won't believe me, but I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for burning it all down, for lighting the match I couldn't. I deserved worse. You gave me a way out. Julie. There was no phone number, no signature beyond the name. I sat on my steps for a long time rereading the words, not because I forgave her, not because we were suddenly good, but because she understood something most of them never would. That I didn't walk away to be petty. I walked away to survive. They called me dramatic, ungrateful, difficult. But what they didn't realize was this. Every time I said yes when I wanted to say no, every time I gave when I was empty, every time I swallowed rage with a smile, that was the real damage. And the moment I stopped doing that, that's when they called me the villain. Because they no longer had someone to clean up after them, fund them, absorb their messes, play the polite, obedient buffer between their lies and their consequences. It wasn't their shield anymore, and that made me dangerous. One afternoon, I ran into Rick's dad at the grocery store. He looked older, tired, thin. His cart was filled with frozen meals and discount wine. He stared at me for a second too long. "Didn't expect to see you here," he muttered. I smiled politely. "It's a public grocery store." He didn't smile back. "You always thought you were better than us," he said quietly. No, I replied calmly. I just finally remembered I wasn't worse. He opened his mouth, maybe to spit more poison, but then he looked away and pushed his cart toward the checkout. I didn't watch him leave. He no longer had that power. Later that night, I found the envelope I'd tucked away for months, the one I handed to Rick's father at that dinner. I hadn't read it since that night, but now, for closure, I opened it. The first line still made me smile. Dear family, since you love jokes, here's one. You used me like a credit card, but forgot I could cut you off any time. It ended with, this dinner may be for your mother, but the bill? You've been handing it to me for years. Consider this my final payment. And I meant every word. They thought they destroyed me with that paper plate, with the plastic fork, with the dog bowl. But what they didn't know is those things lit the fuse. They were so sure I'd always be the one who gave, who stayed, who smiled. And now they sit in a house I once paid for, waiting for checks that'll never come. My new life isn't flashy. I don't post about it. I don't talk about cutting off toxic people online like it's a trend. I just exist, peacefully, powerfully, on my own terms. And every time I sit down for dinner, I reach for my best ceramic plate, the one I bought for myself, real silverware, real linen napkin, and I raise my glass just a little and whisper with a smile to the dog bowl, because I may have been seated next to it once, but now I eat at the head of my own table. It's been months since I walked away. The fallout came and went, but I'm still standing. Calmer, clearer, lighter. No more apologies for setting boundaries. No more explaining why self-respect isn't selfish. I didn't leave to hurt anyone. I left because I finally realized I was allowed to choose peace over performance. Let them tell their version. Let them play the victim. I'm not here to rewrite their story. I'm finally writing mine. And in mine, I'm free. And I'm not coming back.